ultra exclusive Tactiroxa music video!
Oh, me! Oh, this gots to be hilarious!
It's called I'm Just a Rock and Roll Clown! Woo! Come on, girls!
Hello, Wasteland! And yes, today we are learning how to make a sweet tooth ice cream truck head, or flamethrower turret, or whatever you want to call it. Now, simply put, I take one of these craft store beads, and the way to do it is find one that's just the right size. You measure this by holding it next to the truck or car that you want to use. Next step then is to rough up the surface. You could use sandpaper, but a file works too. And the reason why we're doing this is so that when we glue all the additions on, it's got that surface to actually glue onto, otherwise it just glues onto the paint and reacts and it doesn't work well. Now I'm just using some off-cut 1mm Plasticard here, but you could use whatever you like or whatever you happen to have lying around. You want to cut a bit that's around 2-3 millimeters wide. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's a wasteland vehicle. Nothing's ever perfect. And the easiest way to build this is to have a guide. So if you know where your face is going to be, just draw a little smiley face on there, and you can use that to tell you, where to put the plastic, where to fold it, where to glue it. Now, the shape we're making is basically like a pair of braces that you might see a kid wear, the old-fashioned ones that go on the outside of the mouth. I mean, there are other things that we could describe it as, but yeah. Simply put, the actual weapon and all of that gets attached not to the plastic, but in between it. There's going to be an upper and a lower part, as you can see here. So the reason why we're doing this is because I was looking at the original concept art for Sweet Tooth's ice cream truck from Twisted Metal Black for the PlayStation 2, and this is pretty much what it looked like. Now, you have to keep in mind, I've made one of these before, but I didn't look at the one that I made a couple of years ago when making this. I wanted to see if I could go off memory. I wanted to see if I could come up with something new. So there will be differences between this and the one I've made, but the fundamentals are the same. So here you can see I'm measuring out my second piece of plastic to stick on there. So there you go. You got the beginnings of the mouth shape. And this is sort of the opening that the team would have made in the big fiberglass head of the clown or whatever, to put the flamethrower in or to put the weapon in. So you can just super glue that in place, same as before. And you do, I mean, this video is super sped up by comparison, but you do have to sit there and just hold it. I mean, if you've got some like instant setting stuff, you can use that, but once it's on there, it looks pretty good. I mean, at this point you should be getting a rough idea of where we're going with this. The little smiley face should help. But you want to do all of your plastic work before you do any green stuff work. So we're going to be putting rivets on this by cutting little bits of plastic rod and gluing those on there. And I know this can be quite hard for people to see, so I've done a second one here just to show you. I literally just pick up the rivets with my fingers, but some people like to use pliers or tweezers or what have you. So there you go, that's the whole thing riveted up. One trick you can do is use a little hand drill and basically make holes in sort of places where rivets should be, as though they've fallen out due to combat damage or age or whatnot. Helps add a little bit of ramshackle realism to the build. But I would say this, if you're going to drill little holes, don't do it for the whole build, because it'll look a bit strange. That's a different style. Okay, so here we have the weapons that we're going to be using. Well, technically we're only going to be using one weapon, one flamer weapon. But if you've seen any of the parts made by Kyamsil Designs, or indeed any of the other parts manufacturers, you know that there are so many cool weapons out there. You just have to try them and see what looks good. I mean, this is going to be a relatively traditional sweet tooth ice cream truck build, so yeah, we're just going to be focusing on a heavy flamethrower there from Kyamsil Designs. Link in the description box below. Use the code JHMinches for 10% off. So one of the things is, if this is made of glass fiber, where you might have some like metal reinforcement mesh that was put into it during its construction in real life, you know, you look at carnival rides and things like that that are made of glass fiber. Sometimes they have like a support underneath, like a chicken wire. Well, we're going to use a bit of this car body repair mesh that I've showed you in a previous video, and we're just going to cut a little bit off, and we're going to put that in place on the back just to make it look like it's taken some damage and this is like the bare naked material showing through underneath. We're going to use green stuff later on to really blend that in. What am I saying? We're going to use some green stuff now. Alright, first step, you want to fill up the top hole, and you can use a little tool and just press that down just to help smooth it into the surface. Now I want to stress, when working with green stuff, it is tacky, it will be very malleable up to like 24 hours. If you want to stop at any step and just let it dry and harden, you do that. You do not need to follow my guide here to the T. I do a lot of things for camera just to keep this moving, as it were, and if you wanted to stop and let it dry in between each step, you do you. Alright? This is not a you must guide. This is a by all means adapt it, change it, go crazy. Okay, you can see where I've been doing the lips on this thing, and the way I like to imagine it is they've taken the head and they've basically made a big hole in the middle of it, so I'm sort of shaping the mouth as though it was already there and it was cut away. But it really is quite easy making these. I know it might seem quite hard, and especially when you start doing it, you're like, oh god, I can't get the shapes right. But you are dealing with very fundamental shapes, like long sausage rolls of green stuff, or in this case, a little oval that's smushed flat. So these two ovals form the back of the eyes, the white of the eyes, and then these little squished discs form the pupils, the incredibly large pupils. Now, the nose, again, super simple, just basic shapes. We're using a ball of green stuff, and you will notice that it will fall off. And in order to keep this in place while it cures, just put a drop of superglue on there. Like, there's no hard and fast rules when making these things. There's no one's ever said, oh, you can't do that. So just, yeah, hold it in place with a bit of superglue. It will cure and stay on there, and everything's great. Now, doesn't that look like a creepy clown face at this point? Look at that. Oh, man. Alright, so at this point, you might want to start thinking about decorating your flamer turret. Now, you could do what I did with my sweet tooth, where I did these sort of two almost devil horns of hair coming out the sides, or you might want to do the more traditional sweet tooth, where you've just got that big plume of hair on top, which is like fire. I'm going for something completely different. I made a little horn to demonstrate, and I thought, you know what, that'd be pretty cool if I actually made this little devil turret, like something you'd see out of Cuphead. So that's what I've done. Now, again, like with the nose, I've superglued these in place, and I'm just using my tool to sort of help smush them down. And now we get to the final step, which is putting a bit of green stuff in the bottom to plug the bottom hole. And this one you want to be a bit deeper, because we're going to be drilling into that. Now, fast forward to the next day, I've since sanded that down a bit, so all the surfaces are a bit smoother than they were when I first did them. And I'm going to drill out the bottom hole. And this is where a paperclip or metal rod will go, which will actually form the pivot for this turret head. Now this video is just showing you how to do that turret head. I'll do another follow-up video where I talk about the kind of nuances of making an ice cream truck that looks a bit more psychotic than Wasteland. There's an art to it, lots of teddy bear heads and things like that. But there you go. Now, at this point, if we just compare this to the original Sweet Tooth, I mean, this has turned out absolutely great. But you can see there are differences here. I mean, the fundamentals are basically the same, but the width of the smile and the fact that on my Sweet Tooth turret, there's actually an upper lip, as opposed to on the one I've showed you how to make, where it's just the sides of the mouth. And that comes down to the plastic work around the bead is actually different. Alright, so if we just talk about painting for a minute, I think you guys have seen me paint like fundamentals enough at this point. You know how to paint something red or yellow or white or black. So come on, I mean, it's red skin, yellow lips, yellow nose, white, the whites of the eyes and black for the pupils. Alright, so moving on, you've got to do the silver, the metal work. And this is just sort of blotting in all the basics at this point. We're just covering all the base tones right now before we get into like dry brushes and washes and all that fun stuff. Using Citadel's lead belcher paint. I mean, you want to be careful to make sure that you actually get the lip, the rim of all of these surfaces, because more often than not, people paint something silver and they're just doing they're just effectively highlighting the surface. They're not going around it. And then we're doing that second layer of yellow, just like I showed you in my how to build and paint speed cameras. This is my 75-25 mix of brown and yellow, where there's more yellow than brown. Now doing I'd say this is like a highlight layer for the red. It's a sort of relatively bright orange, made mostly from red with a bit of yellow. Again, sort of 75-25 red to yellow. And this is just to help brighten up that red. I mean, it's all going to get darkened down anyway, but it just helps add a bit more dimension to it, I think. Alright, I want to say here, just as it goes on to me touching the edge around the pupils, yeah, so you can tell I'm doing the voiceover after I've edited the video together, because man, the pacing for this is all off. Oh, you'd have to be a crazy clown to follow along with this. I mean, you gotta keep in mind, when I make these videos, it takes hours and hours of recording like 2-minute segments and then editing it all together. And it's terrible. But here you can see me putting the wash around the eyes. It's important to put a bit of a wash around all these different raised surfaces, because at the end of the day, this is something that a team has put together, some psycho raiders has put together, so it will be dirty and grimy and nasty. And honestly, you can go a bit crazy with it. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, because you want this thing to look fearsome. This isn't meant to be a friendly mascot's face. It would have started off as that, but it sure isn't that now. Alright, so I've done some other layers and things, so we're skipping ahead right to the end now. I wanted to keep the speed of this video up and the length of this video down, so this is why we're here. But when I originally did Sweet Tooth, I did all sorts. I did like salt masking on there to give like these rust texture effects. I did all these oil streaks, and that's really easy when you've got a bright white surface to dirty up. But working on something like a red or a black or a really dark colour, it can be quite hard. But it's still possible. But there you go. There is my Devil's Head turret. And I'd certainly say that still qualifies as a clown's head. Like, I know some of you are probably raising your eyebrows like, wait a minute. I thought you were showing me how to do Sweet Tooth's, the exact like for like. It's like, no. The fundamentals are the same. This is up to you now to take it and run with it. Okay. If you can do this, then you can make a Sweet Tooth head. Don't worry about it. And the nice thing is, you can do a lot of variation with it as well. Like, it's not just a clown or a devil. I did a third head while I was recording, and I think you guys can figure out who this is.
Hi, everybody.
I did an evil Mickey Mouse. I mean, I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist. It's the Wasteland. I mean, this was bound to happen. And it's, oh my goodness, it's so easy to paint. It's just black and white. It's two colours. Put a bit of brown on there, put a bit of oily, streaky, clear, nasty colouring on the back, around the ears. Oh, it's so much fun. And you can use the smaller beads because the head doesn't need to be as big. You can use a very small bead, cut it in half for the ears. So yeah, this has been how to build Sweet Tooth's flamer turret. I honestly don't know what I'm calling this episode. This is how to build a creepy clown flamer turret. I think I had the idea in my head before I started recording what I wanted, and now it's just a mess. But anyway, I hope this has been fun for you guys, because I've had a blast. It's been really good fun making this one. And always don't forget to check out our sponsors. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Kyamsil Designs, the guys who have made the bits, the flamethrower bits that I've used in today's episode, as well as that minigun on the Mickey Mouse. Or is that a minigun mouse? Oh, I don't know. So yes, Kyamsil Designs. Check out their website and use the code JHMinches for 10% off your next order, as well as Mad Cars Green Miniatures. And of course, thank you to Gaslands UK. They do have the February Car of the Month competition happening right now. Right now, it's really heating up, but you haven't got long left to enter. You've only got about a week. You've got until Sunday the 23rd to get it in. So come on, you can do this, guys. And of course, thank you to V2A, the post-apocalyptic band of the Wasteland, who I know I didn't use their music for my intro in this video. I wanted to have a bit of fun. So, no worries. Thank you for watching Wasteland, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye-bye.